all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and hope you guys are doing great. Thank you all for being here, and those of you coming in the door, flying in. I did a notification just a few minutes ago. I gotta get that out there a little bit earlier, but I'm working on it. So, but thank you to all of you who are here, and thank you to those of you who are coming but are not yet here. It's been a good day, busy day, but welcome to the Night Terrors. These are our shorter format Paranormal Portal shows. Generally Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday are our 2-hour shows. So every other night that we are broadcasting is 1 hour. We're roughly about 1 hour, usually about 50 minutes to an hour. So I just want to point out right off the bat here that tomorrow night we will be joined by Miss Robin Moonshadow, and she will be coming to us to discuss Bigfoots, little people, beings, cryptids. She's a fantastic researcher. If you haven't caught her on the show, you'll have to tune in tomorrow. She's just a great person, and she's been a friend of the show for a long time, and we really enjoy having her. So she'll be with us tomorrow night right here on the show. We don't normally do guests on Wednesday, but we've started to get into this, and it's fine. I mean, it's a cool thing for us to have guests. I usually save the guests for the Friday, Saturday shows because that's when we're connected to the network as well. But I don't see any reason why we can't do them on Wednesdays as well. Lord knows the YouTube is doing pretty well for us, and more and more people are finding the channel. So as that happens, we can have guests whenever we want. It doesn't have to wait. But I just like to spread the guests as widely as I can, and that's what happens on the network night. So, but tomorrow night, Robin Moonshadow. Remember, Friday night coming up. This will be the Parathon Marathon with the Freaky Friday crew. So we will be teaming up with Kev Baker and the Freaky Friday crew on Friday night, starting at, I think, 3 p.m. Pacific time. And you can check that out starting on the Kev Baker channel, the Kev Baker Show. So find that YouTube channel, the Kev Baker Show. We will, of course, provide a link on our social media as well to help you get there. So make sure you're following us on Paranormal Portal Radio page on Facebook. So on Facebook, just look for Paranormal Portal and you'll find us. But specifically, it's facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. And we will certainly announce that. Robin tomorrow night. And Don will be joining me as well. And then the Kev Baker Show Marathon on Friday night. And we'll be doing literally 5 hours of show. So we're going to do 3 hours of Freaky Friday with the Freaky Friday crew. And then we're bringing the Freaky Friday crew over here to the portal. And we're going to do 2 more hours. So it's going to be a 5-hour marathon of fun. And that's going to be wild. If you're not familiar with the Kev Baker Show, you should get familiar with it because it's a great show. And the Freaky Friday is Kev, along with Joe Joseph and Scotty Lopez. And they're just hilarious. They're just great fun and great guys. And we're really looking forward to this, to do a collaboration show between both of our platforms. And it's going to be a hell of a long run. So for those of you who want more Portal, that's about as good as it gets, other than, when we did an 8-hour paranormal marathon back on, when the hell was that, Halloween? I think it was somewhere around there. But Yeah, so that'll be coming up this Friday. And then Saturday night, author Al Tyus will be with us. And Al is someone who's been on the podcast. He's been a guest on the podcast. Fantastic guy, really wonderful and very knowledgeable. He's an author, published author with 2 books under his belt. And he's just a lot of fun to talk to. He and I had a great discussion, and there was so much more to discuss, but we only took about an hour to have that discussion on the podcast. So he's excited to come back and be on our YouTube channel, and that'll be Saturday night right here on the Paranormal Portal channel. So that's all the announcements up front. Sorry, there's a lot of them, but we're getting busier and busier, ladies and gentlemen, and there's some really special announcements coming up in the near future, but we'll get to those when we have more things locked down. So anyway, I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, so Cha-Cha loves announcements. Well, let me tell you, I got more I can tell you about. Newsflash, I'm wearing clean underwear. Thank you very much. I don't even know what the hell that means. But anyway, I got some stories pulled up for you guys. And if you want to be a part of tonight's show, you got a paranormal thing, activity, event, or experience of your own that you'd like to share, please feel free to call in and be a part of the show with me. The phone number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And if you forget that later, it's right up here, right there. Look at that. I'm getting good at this point. See that? That's the number right up there. So call in anytime during the course of the show, and I'll do my best to answer it as quickly as I can. My apologies in advance. I tried a different kind of like sausage today, and it was oh, Jesus, it was a spicy kind of chipotle sausage with Monterey Jack cheese, and it tasted good, but it's really kind of kicking my butt, and I'm not sure what's going to happen throughout the course of tonight's show. So fair warning, maybe you don't want to wear earphones tonight. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be fine, but I just feel like, oh man, it's doing like sidekicks in my gut. So anyway, can't see the phone number. Whatever, Cha-Cha. Whatever. Time to break out the bifocals there, lady. I'll just tell you, 720-923-0500. So you don't need to read it. You can hear it. All right. Let's get going. I got a story right off the bat to bring to you. And this one is coming from New Hampshire. And it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. And sounds lovely, doesn't it? Let me just check this quick before I go any further. Where the hell's my mouse? There it is. Yeah, looks good. I'm all framed up good. All right. Just had to check it, because just trying to resituate things in the studio here. So feels good. All right. Again, New Hampshire. It says, it was late at night. I was in a guest bed at my 2 aunts' house. My mom, Lily, and Goob, or Stacy. My 2 aunts were watching TV in the living room. The room was dark and it felt cold, even though it was warm a few minutes ago. A couple of years ago, it must have been in the summer, because I went swimming a lot with my cousins. And anyway, it was around midnight, I guessed, when I saw a strange black figure. Well, it looked more like a woman than a man because of its curves, and it was fuzzy, but I think she may have had a dress on. She looked as though she had white hair and light-colored eyes, like blue or green. I don't know if I read this one. Might be another rerun, folks, but that's how I roll here on the portal. My arms and my arms. Yeah, I did read this one last night because they screwed up that sentence, and I remember it last night. But anyway, the hair on my arms were on end, and I was shivering, but I still don't know if it was my imagination or real life. A couple months later, my family was telling me ghost stories, and I asked my mom if she believed in ghosts, and she said she did. She thought they were spirits that were going to hell. I remember this one. Yeah. I don't know why the hell that people have that idea. I asked her if she had ever seen a ghost, and she told me that she hadn't. But my Aunt Lily's house was haunted and that an old woman had died in the house, but I don't remember why or how. Anyway, she picks up things and organizes them how she wants them, and she'll move soda cans from the coffee table. And I don't know if I saw her or if I was dreaming, but either way, I still think it's creepy. You know when you're watching a television show and sometimes on the next episode they kind of go back and kind of bring you up to speed? Well, just consider that last story that. It was a recap. It was I don't know what they call those. Just bringing you up to speed to where we are on the portal. So I don't know if that's a good explanation or not, but it's the only one I got because I guess I just kind of screwed that up 2 nights in a row now. I've reread a story from the night before. So there's some good ones here I got coming up, though. So let's see how we do here. The next one is coming from California, and it has to do with apparitions, voices, or touches. A few years ago, a feral cat gave birth to a kitten behind our garage. One night, soon after, the kitten was meowing incessantly. My brother and I figured the mom had abandoned it, so we decided to rescue the kitten, and it was around 8 or 9 p.m. I'm not quite sure, but it was already dark outside. At the time, I was 20 years old, and my brother was still in high school, though he was already about 6'2" and about 200 pounds. That particular day, he wore a white top, white jeans, and white sneakers. Wow. There were no lights in or around the garage, so we were just staring into slight darkness, calling for the kitten, and at one point, my brother stepped inside the house. A few minutes later, I spotted the kitten, and I didn't want to lose sight of it, so I kept my eyes on him or her, and I yelled out for my brother, but got no response. I yelled out his name a few more times, and nothing. And I finally looked over to where I saw this big figure, his all-white clad figure, but he hurriedly walked around the side of the garage, fast enough that I only saw the big white blur of his outfit. Well, I didn't know where he was going, so I went after him, and the lights of the house lit up the yard just enough to see a little bit. I looked around the side of the garage, and again, this white blur quickly went behind the garage where it was pitch black. Absolutely no light. I went after him, but I didn't see him in the darkness, so I yelled out his name from inside the house. My brother yelled, "What do you want?" The whole time, he was inside the house. Well, that was just too much. I just ran into the house, just way too freaked out to come out again. I still don't know what it was that I saw. I have other stories about that house, though none nearly as freaky as this one. I would just advise your family members to not dress in white shirts, white pants, and white shoes. That's kind of creepy all by itself, unless you're a nurse or something. All right, or a scientist, I suppose. If you work in a lab, that would be a good ensemble, but I don't know how you justify it any other way. All right, let's go to the next one, and that is coming out of Michigan. I got some family in Michigan. If they're watching, that's an inside joke. So anyway, I had a bad experience years ago at a party. I was at a friend's house in Mount Clemens, and we all knew his apartment was absolutely haunted. And honestly, I was never that bothered by it as long as I stayed away from the mirrors. I have a mirror thing when it comes to haunted places. Well, anyway, they decided to drag out a Ouija board. I don't like Ouija boards, and I don't get good vibes from them. I refused to go along with this idea, but I was vetoed. I sat on the couch while 3 of the guests started using it on the living room floor. They started asking it questions and then bantering back and forth with whatever was communicating through it, and I felt the atmosphere get heavy around the room. And I knew deep down this was not good. A year before this, I had seen a Native American spiritualist who said I had a guardian spirit, a male ancestor from the paternal side of my family. And because of an experience before this, I really believed it to be true. So in my mind, I called to him for protection. They continued with the board, and all of a sudden they all noticed the room had drastically dropped in temperature, and I had not. I was still warm. My friend Jen was freaked out and sat by me, and she immediately noticed my body temperature, and she took hold of my arm and it felt like she had submerged her hand in ice. Another guest came over and sat on the other side and suggested cuddling for warmth. Well, my warmth anyway. The others continued with the board, and all of a sudden I remember people arguing and becoming defensive and catty, very unlike how they were earlier in the night and over really silly things. And I decided to bring to their attention that perhaps they should stop playing with the board, that it may be bringing negative energy into the house. Things got overwhelmingly tense, so I just left. I wish I could remember all the details, but this was years ago. I just remember thinking, thank God for a guardian spirit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think we all have guardian spirits. It's just that I don't think, I think once you make a choice to screw around with things, you're kind of circumventing their ability to really thoroughly protect you because, and I'm not saying that Ouija boards are horrible negative things, as I've said many times. They're, they are what they are, but I just think you have to be careful and you have to do a lot of preparation and a lot of, concluding the session. And it doesn't just mean dragging a piece of plastic over goodbye, but, I just think that, once you make those choices, whatever spirit is a guardian of yours, and whether you believe it's a guardian angel or if it's an ancestral spirit or whatever, spirit guides, guards, whatever. Once you make choices to do something that may be dangerous for you, it's like, I don't know if that precludes them to be able to intervene as effectively. So I think that they may be kind of weakened by our choices sometimes because we always have free will. You always have free will. It's not like they're going to keep you from doing something, and it's not like they can. So if you make choices to put yourself in crappy situations where something bad might happen, I'm sure they're still doing what they can, but I think it really hamstrings them in a sense. So just be careful messing around with the spirit world. That's my point, I guess. Got to be careful. All right, let's go to the next one. And the next story is coming out of California. And this one has to do with the same thing, apparitions, voices, and touches. Well, I haven't caught him on video, but now I think it's a guy ghost. I don't know why people start out their stories like there's always already an ongoing discussion here. But anyway, I guess it's a writing style or something. But anyway, but now I think it's a guy ghost and probably human. He's kind of freaky, but he doesn't scare me much anymore. He tries to mess with me now, though. Ever since I uploaded the other story, he's been messing with my friends as well. Well, the other day I had my friend over and we were talking in my room, and she was changing, and she said that would be a so-called curse word in the world of my parents. And she was changing, and she said, what would be a so-called curse word in the world of my parents? Gotcha, okay. I heard a knock on my door that sounded just like the way my dad always knocks. I yelled, come in. And my friend was freaking out because she thought she was in trouble. But nobody came in. I went over to the door and tried to open it, and I realized it was locked. My friend didn't do it, and when I unlocked it, I found out that my dad was downstairs, far away from my room, because we have a huge house. It was pretty weird. He knocked again a few times and then gave up because I told my friend to ignore him. I could tell he was playing games now, and I don't think he's all that shy anymore. And the final time he knocked, I said, that's just the ghost I told you about. I'm not crazy, but he's starting to get on my nerves. And that was the last time he knocked that night. When my friend fell asleep, I couldn't feel him inside my room for a while. I think he was trying to be polite because I told him he was getting annoying. But then I could feel him come back in, and he was in a different place in my room because I slept on the opposite side of the bed. When we woke up that morning, we were in the bathroom just for orientation. My parents' closet door is right across from the hallway, from the bathroom, and I wanted to borrow something from my mom, so I headed for the door, and I reached out to grab the handle, and it started to shake really hard as if someone were trying to open it. Well, I was freaked out for a bit, but realized it might be him trying to pull something. He's tried to mess around with me, but he's kind of a gentleman, and he's still pretty shy, but not much anymore, and I need a name to call him because names like the spirit, the ghost, or him are just getting old. I just want to know what I should call him, but I kind of like Danny. Well, I'm going to try to find some way to communicate with him and ask him why he's here, and even if he even knows he's dead. And of course, what his name is. What should I use to try to communicate with him? I don't know. Good question. I think that oftentimes dreams are probably the best way to communicate with spirits. Because I don't know. I don't know. Just seems to me to be the more safe option. I don't know. I guess bad things could happen through dreams too, but it doesn't seem to be a surrender. Like any other way seems to be a surrender. Like you're allowing them into you, or giving them access to you by using items or tools or things. But if you say, through dreams, come talk to me in dreams, then I think it's kind of on that astral realm where it doesn't have to do with your energy or their energy or some kind of intermingling. It's just kind of the spot where, that kind of meeting could happen. I'm just spitballing this because I really don't know. But it seems to me that in my experiences, when I believe I've had communication from the spirit world, it's always been in dreams. Like when my father came to me, it was in a dream, and it was markedly different than a normal dream, though. It was very, very, very lucid and very real, and it was more real than a lot of my life seems to be. A lot of times. So it was really a supercharged experience. So, and I don't think that puts you in a vulnerable place, because if anything goes sideways, you just kind of wake up, I think. But I don't know. I could be absolutely wrong. I guess, time will tell. But anyway, the next one is coming from California. And this has to do with a psychic or medium kind of experience. It says, this happened to me early. I was entering my 20s, and I was in California at the time. We were living in Claremont, and I was out taking a walk. Try taking a walk and suddenly losing your vision. It happened to me, and it lasted about 5 minutes. I believe I was 2.5 blocks from our house, and it was early evening, and the sun was gone, and I remember the air being nippy, so I'm guessing it to be late fall. I was tired and grumpy, and I needed to be alone, but it's hard to be alone when you're always being followed. I'm talking about the souls who stick to planet Earth. And there are a few travelers, ghostly souls, who seem curious about me, but it's mostly stuck souls or ghosts in any given location who follow me around. It was dark, and I wanted to fill my mind with quiet, and it rarely happens, but I try anyway, and I can feel the apparitions coming. The elderly who lived ultra-long lives and refused to leave what they remember, and those who fell from illness, babies who died in the womb and took their mothers with them, children injured at home who died where they lay. They come out of the dark, seeking answers to their confusion, and I am followed, but I am but one person, and I get so overwhelmed at times. I just can't help them all, and I wait for a word from a higher source before I help a lost soul. On that night, I was hoping I wouldn't be called to help, and I just didn't have it in me, and that's when I was attacked. In my weakened state, I let my guard down, and I was struck down by an angry entity. As I said before, I'm only human, and it was just one of those times I was wishing to be somebody else. To be normal for a while, what a great gift that would be. I remember feeling sorry for myself, wanting to lift this burden from my heart, needing some peace for just a little while. Can you imagine having nonstop company around? It's so exhausting, and I was on the edge of tears. I made the mistake of passing a home once owned by a recluse. The man died long before he moved into the neighborhood. What? The man died long before we moved into the neighborhood, sorry. But I knew he was still there, clinging to his home. He was a nasty entity. He hated everyone and everything. I felt so sorry for the family that bought the house, and I cannot imagine the horror they endured, but maybe they were just not aware of their border. It happens like that sometimes. It's rare, especially in the case of an angry ghost, but they just don't like to be ignored. It was strange to see him outside the house. The ghost was pacing around on the front porch, and he looked nastier than usual, and his face was contorted into a deep frown, but he saw me right away. The thought crossed my mind, cross the street right now, but I didn't, and I kept walking. I hadn't gone but 2 steps when my sight started to fade. Now this has scared me. Here I was in the dark, blinded. It was a frightening sensation to be standing there alone. No one around except for an angry entity, and I was blind. This had never happened before, and I promised myself it would be the last. It was disorienting, so I sat down on the sidewalk, of course. I went right into prayer, asking for help, and that's when I heard him whisper into my ear, "How does it feel to be in the dark?" And he laughed at me. And it was a vile laugh, and it was cut short. My sight returned within a minute or so, and I looked around. Adrenaline filled my body, and my heart was pounding hard, standing back up on my wobbly legs. My eyes scanned the dark areas around me, but the old man ghost was gone. He wasn't on the porch, and I didn't feel him any longer. I think he got what he deserved finally. It took me a while to get my legs going again, but I decided to cut short this walk around the neighborhood, and I went home. This experience really shook me to the core, and never did I imagine my eyesight could be taken away. And sure, it was temporary, but it taught me to be prepared. I pray before I go anywhere. I talk a lot about prayer because it works, and I rely on the prayer of protection. Has anybody out there ever had their sight affected during a visitation? Thank you, Taco. Awesome, brother. Awesome. Thanks so much. And ladies and gentlemen, I said gentlemen. Jesus. I don't know if I just stroked out there or what that was, but Taco has just done some really amazing stuff. And I'll be showcasing some of that in the very near future. So just keep watching because you're going to be amazed. I'm amazed. And the man is absolutely talented and just an incredible person. So thank you, brother, once again. But anyway, let's go to the next one. And this one's called The Pervert Ghost. Nice. And it's from California. I'm not saying anything about California with that. That's not my intention, but it's The Pervert Ghost from California. And this is a psychic medium experience. Oh, I forgot to use my water jug again. But I made sure the bottle didn't crack. All right, because you know the sound of plastic when you really drink is like... It's not real pro. It's not really professional. So California. A friend of my grandmother invited us for brunch, and I thought, oh, great. A smelly old lady and her cat. Wow, what a charming person. How fun. At the time, I wasn't sure why she invited me as well, but I took time away from my agency to go. Driving to my grandmother's house is all highway, so I made it there in 20 minutes. My grandmother reminded everyone of a tiny version of Mrs. Santa Claus. She had a jolly and loving nature, and this is where I learned much about compassion. The house we were going to visit was built in the 1950s. Cora had lived there since the beginning, and she planned to die there. Her husband Mike had passed away a few years earlier. He had a long illness and died in the back room of the house. I prayed I wouldn't be seeing him around the house, and Cora missed him terribly and showered tremendous affection upon Mr. Stinky, her 10-year-old pet cat. This was an appropriate name for the cat, too. He had a gassy output worse than any living being should be able to create. This 16-pound cat would clear a room, and I'm talking about gagging reflex and a stampede for the nearest exit. That's truly how bad it was. No, I wasn't thrilled about the thought of breaking bread near a cat breaking wind. Oh, God. Gathering up my courage to go, I picked up my grandmother and I towered over my barely there, just under 5-foot granny. She was small and plump to my tall and skinny. Every time I saw her, my heart filled with a happiness. She had a way of making one feel so loved, and I knew she loved me. And this is why I didn't make up an excuse not to go with her to Cora's home. I would do anything for my grandmother, even put up with Mr. Stinky for a while. We drove up to Cora's home, and there she was, standing in the doorway. Guess who was held in her arms? The infamous Mr. Stinky himself. He looked annoyed, and I knew that wasn't a good sign. It would be hard to choke down a meal with that icky cat around. Oh, well, I would do my best, but I couldn't help sneaking a peek at my watch. We plodded up the pathway with my grandmother in the lead, and I stood silent as the pleasantries were spoken, but I smiled my best smile. We entered the old place, and it was, as I suspected, dirty and unkempt. Cora was old, and she didn't see as good as she had in the past. The dust was thick, and I found my eyes were tearing up. The allergies were flaring with all the mess, and I caught a whiff of the kitty box. It was quite unpleasant, but I kept on smiling. Within 10 minutes or so, we were sitting at the dining room table, and I listened to husband stories and travel memories, etc., until I thought I couldn't take it anymore. And then there were the fleeting glimpses of Cora's husband, Mike. He stood next to me a couple times, and I caught him looking down my blouse. A dirty glance later, I saw him move away and stand next to my grandmother. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That old geezer ghost was trying to touch my grandmother's oversized bust. I cleared my throat quite loudly, and I saw him look over at me, and I gave him one of my death to you if you try it impressions. And, of course, it's kind of funny when you think about it. The guy is already deceased. He faded away, but I knew he was lurking in the shadows nearby. I could feel him, that nasty little pervert. He didn't show himself again during the meal, so I excused myself and went to the restroom, and I cringed upon entering the door. It was in deep need of a cleaning, and when you gotta go, you gotta go. Sitting there, one never finds oneself in a more vulnerable situation, am I right? Well, Mike appeared while I was sitting there. He was trying to peer beneath my lap, and I can imagine what he was trying to view. This made me really mad, and I said in a hissed whisper, "Get the hell out of here, you perverted..." I can't read that part. "Get out and stay out." Sorry, I don't cuss. If I can get my point across in other ways. I think she said bastard, though. So he looked shocked at my venomous words, but he left. Poof, gone. I had to gather my composure before leaving the bathroom, and I was shaking with anger, and I knew there was much this soul still had to learn. He wouldn't be helped by me at this time of this, I was sure. The entity never showed himself to me the rest of the visit, and I hurried my grandmother out of there. Well, Cora died a few weeks later, and the house burned down a year after. Luckily, no one was ever subjugated or subjected. I hope, to the perverted actions of the disgusting Mike. Ah, yes, the proverbial dirty old man. Even death couldn't curb his actions. How sad. Oh, and I don't know what became of Mr. Stinky. Well, there you have it. Stinky cat and a voyeuristic ghost. What more could you ask for? There's never a dull moment here on the portal, ladies and gentlemen. All right. What am I missing? I forgot to scroll the chat there. Okay. The next one is coming from Arizona. And it's just miscellaneous kind of activity, so let's see what it says. Let me get through this part. It says, I've had many experiences in my life when it comes to the paranormal, but the ones I've had tend to stick with me forever. I hope that you'll believe me because I've only told one person, which was my mom, who seemed that she didn't believe me. I hear that having astral projection happens during times of great stress, but I've never read a story about having one as an infant. A few months after I was born, my grandmother had fallen ill. I've never met her to remember her, and I can contemplate that during this time, my mother, who was under great stress, perhaps the stress traveled from her to me through the breast milk. I'm not sure. But this experience is my earliest memory. I remember hovering over my parents' bed at this time they were together. Funny thing was that as an astral projection, I was no longer an infant. I could walk, and I treaded between my mom and dad from the foot of the bed. The TV was on, and it was casting a blue light across all of us. And this is when I saw myself suckling in my red striped overall. Milk was dribbling from the side of my mouth, and I think my parents were asleep, but I'm not sure. It couldn't have been my younger sister because we were only 18 months apart, and she wasn't born until after my grandmother died. And this is all I can remember about the experience. It's plagued me with questions all my life. I still don't understand, and I still don't know if it was real or not. Another experience is a little more recent. I was spending the summer at my dad's house in Arizona. I'm originally from there. And my elder brother, younger sister, and I were all sleeping in the same room. It was perhaps around 1 or 2 at night when I was startled to consciousness by the sound of a man screaming in my ear. It sounded like this man was in serious pain. Whoever he was, he wanted my attention. It was silent in the room, and no one was awake watching TV. I couldn't go to sleep for several minutes until I got myself a cup of water and finally calmed down. My dad's side of the family say that his house is haunted because the previous owner died inside of it while being mentally ill. Don't know if he was insane, and no one stays in the living room alone at night, even with our 3 dogs, 2 of which are pit bulls, to keep them company. The heaviness, even during the day, feels oppressive. Only my stepmother seemed to be the only other with an experience in the house. Others get feelings. She was doing laundry on a day off when she felt the presence of someone behind her. The laundry room is small, and turning around is a bit difficult, and she thought it was my dad playing a trick on her to scare her, so she said, "Cut it out." But she then realized that he was at work. She turned around quickly to see a quick white mist dart past right in front of her face. Can someone explain the astral projection and how I should deal with this possible entity in my summer home? There's one other experience, but I think you've got your mind wrapped around these already. I'll post the other one later. Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of astral projection at that age, but I don't see why it couldn't have happened. And it's certainly, astral projection does not have to be because of stress. It can be any number of reasons why you might spontaneously astral project, but I'm sure stress is one of them. That makes sense, but it could be any number of reasons. I don't know. I mean, any emotion could be a catalyst for it, or it could just be something that just happens. I don't know. But as far as a young baby, that's pretty wild. It truly is. And then, you got to wonder, I've postulated and questioned this before on the show, but at what point does the soul enter the body? Could it be after birth? I mean, I don't know, maybe if the vessel is intended to be used, and, then it will be, and it doesn't have to be at conception. It might be, at 6 months, 3 months, and maybe it varies. So maybe this person just remembers entering their body. I don't know. It's hard to say, but curious anyway, for sure. Let me check the time. We've gone through a few of these. I don't know how much time goes on. I'm a really bad judge of that. I guess we've been at it about 40 minutes. So I'm a bad judge of it because time just flies. And if you would have told me already 40 minutes went by, I wouldn't have believed you. But I've come to expect it almost doing the show. The time has its own meaning here on the portal, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't follow the normal rules here. All right, that's a few more. That should be That should be good. And the next one, of course, is coming from Georgia, and this is a quick one. And it's having to do with a haunted place. I work in a warehouse in Marietta, Georgia, and it is in the area near the intersection of Sandy Plains Road and Canton Road. Several of the employees have seen the spirit of a young girl moving through our facility. One employee said that for some reason they believe the girl's name is Chloe, but that's just a feeling they get. We were just wondering if anyone had any information linking the spirit of Chloe to any true stories in our area, and we've done internet searches, and the only Chloe we can connect to spirit sightings is in Louisiana. We've had a Civil War buff tell us that during the Civil War, there was a hospital located on the property. We don't know if this has any connection to Chloe, but we have had sightings of what people have described as soldiers or people looking like they were from the 1800s. Chloe's a friendly spirit, sometimes playful, running through the racks and hiding in corners, and we believe her to be approximately 10 to 12 years of age, long blonde hair, and always wears a long dress that would indicate the 1800s or earlier. We've adopted her as our own, but we are very curious if there was a Chloe for real. We'd appreciate any help anyone can give us on this one. That's interesting. I don't know. Again, child spirits, I don't know. Come to your own conclusions on that, but I think that just as often as it might actually be a child, it's probably more often not a child. It's just a guise that they throw on to lower the defenses of people, but I could be wrong. So, just some thoughts. The next one is coming from Maryland. This one's a bit longer. It's about a medium-length story, but it says, my family has a history of unusual encounters, so I wasn't surprised when I began experiencing things that were just out of the ordinary. As a child, I was more afraid of these encounters, and so I closed myself off from those around me. I became aware of a presence when I was around 14. I would practice my violin in my room, and I would feel a distinct presence behind me. It was obviously male to me. This continues to this day, although I have not played my violin consistently since I graduated from high school. It makes me feel uncomfortable, but I think that's only because they stand very closely behind. I can tell they're intently focused on me. My mom has mentioned that she has seen her grandfather on occasion, and although I've never met him, I just feel that it's likely him. Last year, my family moved into military housing built in the early 50s, and this was an old duplex, so any noises I attributed to the neighbors, there was constant electrical interference in the house. Speakers would buzz for no reason, and my lights would flicker. I know this could be explained by old electricity, but that was not the only thing I experienced. I would often see shadows out of the corner of my eye, and I would always be drawn to looking at certain areas of the room. My son's room was always very uncomfortable. Whoever was there did not like me in there, and they seemed to will me out of the room, and my son had a horrible time falling asleep in that room and would always wake up screaming as if he had been scared awake. The spirit didn't intend to harm us, I just didn't like us in that room. My cat always acted strangely in that room as well, and he was drawn to it, unlike any of the other rooms in the house. While I was in the old house, I noticed something that I think I've been blocking out for a few years. I've attracted my own trickster ghost. He loves to hide things like my keys and such. I always thought I was just forgetful, which I can be, but I've noticed that if I ask to have the things I've lost back and wander around a bit more, my things will turn up in a place that I could have sworn I already looked. I don't know why, but the name Jack just seemed to pop into my head. When I know Jack is around, I have this sense that he's almost laughing. I never hear anything, but I've always been sensitive to emotions. And typically, with the living, my husband actually thinks it's kind of creepy how empathic I am. I like Jack. He feels like a friend, although I've never known anyone named Jack my entire life. In addition to this, I feel strange cold spots as well. Well, there you have it. All right, the next one is from Pennsylvania. How you guys doing out there? You doing good? Enjoying the show? And thank you to all of you who are here, all 64 of you. Wow. Thank you all for showing up and being a part of the show. I appreciate that a bunch. But let's go to Pennsylvania and see what's going on here. It says, I think I'm a little bit haunted. Things happen a lot to me and I don't like to talk about. But this is one of them that you might acknowledge to be creepy. I think it says, one night I decided to listen to myself. So I took my MP3 player. I listened to myself. Okay, so I took my MP3 player and recorded myself to see what I get. About 7 minutes into my slumber, I actually fell asleep. But what creeped me out was that both my MP3 player screen turned on and my computer turned on. The only way I know I got awake is because my computer made a really loud startup noise, which I never heard before, and my MP3 player only turns on when I touch the buttons. So with that being said, I didn't turn on my computer or my MP3 player when I woke up. I was also too afraid to look at my phone, which so happened to be on the floor again. But what really creeped me out was when I was listening to it, a voice appeared. I can't make out what it says, but it sounds like 4 words. Maybe sounded like, "Stop doing this, please." I know I was asleep because I was snoring most of the time. But the weird thing is, also was that the snoring went away and the voice came on. I think it was an EVP, not me, because if it were me, I'd be able to make out what I was saying because the MP3 player was close to me. I don't know, though, for it could have been gibberish from my slumber, but why did the sound stop when the voice came on? Could someone explain that? Also, my phone and other electronics like to play with my head a lot, because one time my amp turned down on me when I wasn't looking, and it took me 10 minutes to figure out why the music wasn't working. I'm going to listen to more of my MP3 file to see if I get anything else. Wish me luck. Well, good luck. That story's from 2008, so I guess nothing else was turned up. Otherwise, we'd know more. All right, the next one is Wisconsin. We're going to Wisconsin. I used to work in a small town on the Door Peninsula. It was an older family-owned hotel that reminded me of The Shining. Well, I loved it there. It was big, old, and beautiful. When I first started there, they were in the process of updating things since it had really fallen into disrepair. We had a very small 2-part office just a little ways from the entrance, and you had to turn around a corner to get into the desk where I sat. At first, it was just hearing footsteps on the carpet, and I'd get up to greet the person, and no one would ever get to me. But at the same time, people could walk right up to the desk that I never heard approach. I didn't think much of it, but after a while, I got used to being the only one in the building at times. I wasn't excited about it, but I got used to it. Our head grounds crewman took great pleasure in scaring the crap out of me. There's always that one guy. He would sneak up and open the door to the office, which I was normally sitting next to, and would watch me jump 2 feet out of the chair. So the first time I heard my name, I immediately thought it was him. I walked out and looked around, checked all the hallways and places he could have been hiding, but he wasn't anywhere around. I went back to sitting at the desk reading my book when I heard my name whispered again. This time I was out of the chair like a shot, running around and looking for him, and again, he was nowhere around. When confronted, he said he'd been out on the greens. It was a golf course as well. Then I was helping out our housekeeping staff since they had a couple of girls no-show. I offered to strip down the rooms closest to my office, and I went into the first room and did everything I remembered to do. But at the end, I realized I missed something. So when I moved on to the room across the hall, I started along like I had the first 2 rooms, and all of a sudden I heard a man's voice say, Get out. My first reaction was, of course, was that someone was playing a trick on me for actually working, since I very seldom help out housekeeping. I left the room, looked around, and found no one to be even near me. I even looked out the window, and I continued my removing of the dirty linen and turned around to empty the coffee pot basket when I very distinctly heard it again. Get out. I walked out of the room, found the head housekeeper, and told her what had happened, and I told her I was done helping. She mentioned her staff never had a problem. Later, I confirmed from former employees that the room I was in before being remodeled was the sleeping room of the former manager. After being relieved of his duties, he went back to his apartment off property and drank himself to death. One other encounter I had was in the kitchen. I was pulling things out of the fridge for breakfast and was setting them up on a large work table when across the room, a 1-gallon mayo container filled with metal utensils flew off of the shelf and landed in the middle of the floor. Well, I left them there and continued with my work rather quickly and ran the items downstairs as fast as I could. And I didn't go back upstairs until there were other employees around. I picked up the utensils and placed them next to the sink to be washed. There are a few other stories that I'll pass on from other employees that have been passed down to me. So we're having a hard time deciding who the spirit is, or maybe there's more than one. The former owner was a very strict man and liked things done a certain way. Could he be coming back to inspect our work? The manager that never wanted to leave, or maybe a guest that liked our hotel so much that he chose to stay there for eternity. It's like Hotel California over there. You can check in anytime you like, but you just can't leave. I don't know. Of course, hotels are generally pretty creepy places. I don't mean that sincerely. I mean, there's some old hotels, though. Like, for instance, in Medellin Falls. If you watch the videos from this last Friday night, when Don and I stayed at a hotel that was built in like 1908, and was really like a coach house kind of thing. I mean, it literally was a hallway of rooms and bathrooms and one little lounge room and a sitting room. And Don and I were the only ones in this old building. And it was there was definitely a vibe there. Can't say I experienced anything. The only thing I can tell you is that at one point during the night, I woke up and heard a sound like a big piece of furniture moving, but it was just a one-off, and I was just like listening, and then it was silent again. So I was like, well, and I nodded back off to sleep. I was struggling to sleep the whole time I was there, but I don't think anything really haunting happened. There was a vibe in that place, though. Those old buildings, they definitely have old ghosts. So, and I mean that figuratively more than sincerely. I don't know that it's actually haunted or not, but I had a feeling maybe haunted isn't the right word, but I think there's a presence there. But it doesn't seem to go out of its way to, terrify people. At least it didn't for the one night we were there. But if you want to check it out, it's in our playlists, the live streams playlist, and it's the Medellin Falls 1 and 2. The first 2 videos, I think, was when we recorded the hotel, and one was in the afternoon when we first checked in, and the other was late at night. It was pretty cool. We found out there's no room 13, which I don't know. That was a surprise. A lot of old superstition. Okay, so let's see what time we got here. That was a bit longer. I guess that's gonna about wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. There's one more here. I guess I'll read this last one and then I'll close this so I don't do another rerun on the Thursday night. So here, this one's coming out of Oregon, and it says, I have some sort of ghost or poltergeist activity going on in my house, specifically in the garage. We moved to our new house about a year ago, and it's a brand new home, so I can't imagine why this is going on at all. When we first moved in, I got locked in my garage a couple of times. The first was when I went down there to put the newspaper in the recycling bin. When I turned back to go to the house, the door was locked. I pounded on the door until my fiance came down. He had no problem opening the door, and we both checked the lock, and it was fine. The door also was not sticking, so at the time I thought nothing of it and figured I must have just accidentally locked it going out. I had a few more occurrences like this before I started to get concerned. I started leaving the door cracked when I went out there, and I stopped having a problem with it. Then a few months later, I was meeting my mom to go shopping, and I was supposed to be driving and wanted straighten up my car before she got to the house. I went to the garage, left my purse and car keys on the step inside the garage. I made a point to have my keys just in sight, just to be sure I wasn't leaving the door cracked. And about 5 minutes later, I turned around and my car keys are nowhere to be found, and the door to the house is locked. I was home alone this time, and I know my fiance wasn't playing a prank on me. Also, there's no way anyone could have walked in because all the doors were closed. Of course, being a bit freaked out, I decided to wait in my car until my mom got to the house. Right when I was about to grab the handle to the door, the car door, it locks. And that was the last straw for me. I went tearing out of the garage to wait for my mom in the front yard. When she finally gets to the house, I tell her I accidentally locked myself out and didn't want to mention the whole ordeal in fear that she would think I was insane. When my fiance got home, he said my car keys were lying in the middle of the floor in the entryway. There is no way I accidentally left them there. I specifically remember leaving them on the step next to my purse. I had the same thing happen tonight when I was cleaning out my car. I was vacuuming and the doors to my car kept locking. I was hoping it was just hitting the button with the vacuum, so I stopped what I was doing and waited a minute, and the doors to my car locked and unlocked 3 times. Luckily, this time the door into the house was still open because of the tube for the vacuum. So here I am on the internet hoping someone can make sense of this. Again, you don't need an old house to have hauntings. That's a common misconception, is that there doesn't have to be 100 years of history to a house for it to be dealing with some kind of entity. I think could be something you brought into the house, some item, could be something just wandered in or attached to you or someone in your family. Could be someone screwing around with a Ouija board or something and, improperly and brought something in. Could be just any number of things. I don't know. There can be a lot of reasons that your house may become haunted. And so an old house is not necessarily a lock that you're going to have haunting. It can be brand new homes as well, ladies and gentlemen. But cool story. And I closed it, and I guess that's going to wrap it up for us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here. Stay tuned to tomorrow night's show. Tune in to tomorrow night's show. Again, I'll be joined by Miss Robin Moonshadow. She'll be joining us here on the portal. She is a Bigfoot investigator. She does a lot with proto-pygmies and little people, such as gnomes, puckwudgies, etc., etc. She's just a wonderful person and a longtime friend of the show. She's been a guest many times, and she's got a bunch of stories of some encounters people have had, and we're going to get into that tomorrow night right here on the show. Don will be joining me. Again, Miss Robin Moonshadow joining me tomorrow. And remember, Friday night is the 5-hour marathon combination show between Freaky Friday, the Kev Baker Show, Freaky Friday, and the Paranormal Portal. So it'll be 5 hours of fun. The first 3 hours will be on the Kev Baker Show channel on YouTube, as well as TFR Live. And the second 2 hours, or the last 2 hours, will be right here on our YouTube channel. So if you're not already following the Kev Baker Show, please get subscribed over there and check it out, and ring the notifications bell. You got to check out his channel. He does a lot of stuff. He does so many more types of varieties of things. And he just is a great guy, a good friend of the show and of both Don and I. So we're really looking forward to this joint venture with them. So it'll be 5 hours of show on Friday night if you stick through it all. So I hope you guys will do that and join us. And again, tomorrow, Robin Moonshadow. So, Saturday, author Al Tyus will be joining us. Al's a great guy. He's an author, a former paranormal investigator, published author with 2 books to his name. And I believe he's working on another one, but just a really fantastic guy, very incredibly knowledgeable, and really fascinating gentleman to talk to. So we're going to have him on Saturday. So lots going on the portal this week. So make sure you stick around and stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed and ring the notification bell if you have not already, so that you get notified. And Gabriella Houtman, that's a new name. Good to see you. Anybody else new in here? Hello, Gabriella. Nice to have met you. Thank you for coming in and checking out the show. I'm just looking at the names. I'm going to look at the participants list and just see. Digger Dog, how you doing? 5 Hazel, Bell Prepper, Bomber, Cha-Cha, Digger Dog, Elaine, Ethan, Gabriella, Ginny with a G. How you doing, Ginny with a G? Kathy, hello. Marilena, hello. Moog, how you doing, brother? Nelly, I'm here. So Much Jake is here. How you doing, Jake? Stacy, the Pharmacy, Seeds Network, Tighten Up, and the Duke, World Bigfoot Radio is here. So that's the active chatters anyway. But thank you all for being here, being a part of the show. And I really, truly appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 days a week right here on YouTube. There's a Paranormal Portal live stream going on, so I hope you guys will continue to join us and spread the word and check out our podcast on all the podcast players out there, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, iTunes. That's the Paranormal Portal podcast. So love you guys. That's going to wrap it up for me. So love you. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Check the description for some links that help support the show. That really means a lot. We have a lot of things on our bucket list this year we want to get to, and we need your help. So if you're able to do that, we would really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Love you all bunches, and we'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hope you'll join us. Oh, and sweet dreams.